Everything you've read about blockchain is true. Everything you've read about blockchain is a lie. Those two statements are not the most corrupt statements so far. Here's the one I want you to focus on. Both of those statements are correct. How's that possible? What's going on? How could we, almost 1 billion people tweeting about blockchain every day, or writing about it, or talking about it, not understand the difference between what's true and what's a lie? Something is going on. So let me ask you guys a question. How many people here think blockchain is like a Swiss Army knife? Raise your hand. Wow, I was expecting like more than half people to do that. All right, let me ask you a different question. How many people think blockchain is like Play-Doh? Raise your hand, I want to see. Good, we got the right crowd. There's some people who didn't raise their hands, so you got to figure out where you are in the middle, okay? The issue with protocols when they get developed, everything from early printing press to electricity to the internet to where we are today, is that some people tend to think of it like a Swiss Army knife, which is, I got the answer, don't worry, I know how exactly it's gonna work, I know who I'm gonna disrupt, I know how I'm gonna disrupt them, shit, I know the date and the time when I'm gonna disrupt them. And then there's other people who are like, I don't know, it's cool, what can we make of it? And there's a pattern for both of those types of people, and there's a pattern for businesses in those two types of areas, and that pattern has played out over and over and over in history. One type of people look at blockchain, and they think they've got it all figured out. I got a flux capacitor, I know exactly where it is, I got a time machine, I got 88 gigawatts, and I'm gonna take you there. The other group of people are trying to figure out the use cases, the business case. I call these people the Play-Doh people. Here's the thing, not everyone needs to understand blockchain. Not everyone. You don't have to understand the underlying workings of it in order to build an exceptional business. But everyone needs to understand how paradigms move. And when I talk about paradigms move, I'm talking about big paradigms and how they move. So here's an interesting stat. If you think about the internet, and you consider the internet to be 20, 30 years long, about 80% of the value that was created from the internet, when I say value, I mean those people who, became multi-billionaires, never understood TCP/IP. Never. Most of them don't even know what the hell TCP/IP is. And 20% of people actually understand TCP/IP, and they're the nerds with the propeller hats on their heads, right? That can actually write the code. And this is what plays out in every paradigm. Electricity, same thing. Printing press, same thing. Steam engine, same thing. 80% of the people don't have to understand where the flux capacitor is. So why is it that we're lost as an industry right now with investors, entrepreneurs, and incumbents, everybody trying to figure out which distributed ledger technology we should work on, which consensus network we should work on, and what's the difference between proof of work, proof of stake, and that one sort of misleading thing that Bitcoin takes all the electricity of Denmark that everybody tweeted, and suddenly that lie became a truth. What's going on? When you think about paradigms, you have to look at paradigms and go, okay, what's the 0 to 1 invention that there is, and how am I going to commercialize that 0 to 1 invention? And in order to frame that for blockchain for you, I'm going to take a look at the internet. The first invention on the internet, at least the one that you can package as a 0 to 1, is real-time exchange of text, okay? And what happens with these 0 to 1 inventions is when they happen, usually there's one company, one product, one solution that makes everybody aware of the invention. With the invention of text, that was AOL Chat. You guys remember AOL Chat? The CD that you popped in with a user's license agreement that didn't protect your data as your property, and that's the point where you lost it all? 14.4 modem? AOL Chat popularized the real-time exchange of text. And after that, VCs went crazy, and they funded every single chat application you can think of in the world. At one point, there was 2,400 chat applications VC funded in the world. And they all died. And then the paradigm feels like it's dying. And then a second 0 to 1 invention occurs in the paradigm. How many people here remember Authorize.net? A couple of people, good, you just aged yourself. Thank you, sir. Okay? Authorize.net comes out, invents payment and shopping carts, popularizes it, and everybody goes online. You got pets.com, pancakes.com, everything's.com at that point. Tons of VC money is lost. things cool down again. And then on the internet, we got streaming rich media. Huge invention. I don't remember who popularized that one. I just popped YouTube up there because it's a good example. And that creates a whole new threshold of entrepreneurial activity. And in the end, you look back at the paradigm, and if any of you pick up your phones right now, and you look at the apps on your phone, I guarantee you 80% of your apps on your phone are some combination of those three things. Real-time text exchange, payment and shopping carts, and rich media flowing. That's how paradigms move. So 20% of the value was captured below the line in the 0 to 1 inventions, and 80% is above the line. So if you're trying to be a business in blockchain, I'm not saying don't go below the line. I'm saying if you don't know where the flux capacitor is, don't bother. It's not like I knew this in 1998. This is hindsight. You look back now and you're like, wow, what did the internet really do? It took distance out of every transaction. I wish I knew that in 1998. I would have definitely invented Uber. So when you're looking at a paradigm, you kind of have to understand what is that one thing that the paradigm does? What's the one thing that it changes? And here we are in 2018. We're trying to get hindsight so we can use it as foresight. And the best statement we have is blockchain adds trust to every transaction. What does that mean? Does anyone here trust the person who's on the other side of a Bitcoin or an Ethereum exchange? You even know who's on the other side? I got some news for you. This is completely wrong. Blockchain don't add trust to transactions. It removes the need for trust. That's different. It's very different. Someone published that we have a trust machine coming, and then we all tweeted it and used it in our PowerPoint presentations, and it became truth. This is not what blockchain does. What blockchain does is it adds agreement to networks. It adds agreement to networks. And why is that even important? Agreement. You know why that's important? Because just like we're manufactured with a flaw where we can't transpose ourselves from one point to another, so the internet compressing distance was valuable for us, we actually suck at agreeing. I guarantee you right now, if I asked you guys to pick your favorite 3 movies, not one, make it easy, 3, you guys will take about 6 hours to agree. We're not good at agreeing. And if you want to understand the power and the implications of a protocol, you have to study the history of agreement. In prehistory, we had no agreement. I'm talking about cavemen and cavewomen. We were disorderly. Sir, if we were in prehistory, I'd go in your cave, take your bananas, steal your spares, and you got nothing. We can't agree on what's a crime. We can't agree on whether killing is good or bad. We can't agree on property rules. We couldn't agree on anything. And so as a species, we created pools of power to hold our agreements and then enforce that agreement. Some people call these governments. I call them pools of power. It's a fine line there, especially on today. Okay? We created pools of power, whether it's standard bodies or governments or the Catholic Church. We created pools of power that can centralize our agreement, and then they enforced us and tell us how we should behave. And this played out in the government, played out in society, played out in commerce. There's some pool of power to tell us what's right and what we should agree on. And what blockchain represents, for the first time in the history of our species, is to take those things that were enforced by centralization and test the hypothesis to see if we might be able to agree on it by ourselves in a decentralized way and figure out how to self-order. That was a long sentence. Like my grammar professor would hit me over the head with that run-on, right? What blockchain allows us to do is it allows us to take the things that are currently centralized, things like what's a currency? Things like, how should a law be interpreted? Things like, what's right and wrong? And test the hypothesis that we, the network, can agree on what something is, and as a result, we don't need your pool of power. Does that make sense? That's what's going on. Now, the first experiment, right, was to get a network of people to agree on something. What did we agree on? What's the price of a coin? What's the transactional history of that coin? And what's the balance of everyone's wallet in it? And if enough people agree that that's the price of the coin, and that's the transactional history of the coin, and that's the balance of everyone's wallet, we as the blockchain community looked at governments and go, who the hell are you guys to tell us what a currency is? That's the pattern that's playing out. That's the foresight you want, to be able to understand what you should be doing, both as an investor and an entrepreneur within the blockchain space. The most important point on this slide is the word network. If you have a blockchain project that's in your company and you're not interacting with other companies, you don't have a blockchain project, you have a sophisticated database project. The network is what's important to this protocol. Now, if we think about it, more than likely, blockchain will play out the same way the internet played out, the same way electricity played out, the same way the steam engine played out. Right now, we're all getting networks of people to agree on what something is. What's the price of a coin? What's the balance in a supply chain? What's the provenance of a piece of lettuce? What? Made popular by Bitcoin. You guys realize that, like, this chart is the same chart that I had from the internet chart, right? Everybody still tracking? I believe, and we believe, that the next 0 to 1 use case is going to be to agree on who a node is on the network. The next use case is about who. And I believe the third 0 to 1 use case on blockchain is going to be to get large networks to agree on how something should work. Aha, how something should work. That's fascinating. I got introduced to present at the Catholic Church. I made the mistake on stage, not knowing that there was a member of the Archdiocese in the crowd, that's saying, for example, you know, if 300 million of us agree that it should be this instead of this, who's the Catholic Church to tell us that it's not this? So that's what I mean by networks agreeing on things. And here is how something should work. So if you want to really think about getting foresight around blockchain, it's important that you understand it's not about trust, it's about agreement in networks. And that's how you can change your businesses around it. Now we, at Hu-manity.co, we've taken on the how of hows. We know that there's a problem in the industry, in the world today, where we can't agree on who owns data. And we have a set of rules called privacy that are like 50 shades of gray. Anybody could check in. Anybody here has a company that's not respecting privacy? Everybody's respecting privacy. Everybody, from the government down to the local pizza shop, is respecting privacy. Because it's so easy to check the box. Still, we're in the quagmire that we're in, which is we can't agree on who owns data. So we are using blockchain to get large networks to agree on the 31st human right. By the way, you only have 30. They're kind of sucky. And the 31st human right basically says every human being owns their inherent data as property. Now, we've built a business around that, and we're operationalizing it, but we're using the use case of blockchain to get large networks to agree on how something should work, not necessarily what something is. We are building a decentralized human right, just like we were able to build a decentralized currency from the ground up. Most of the human rights we have today come from top down, right? Like, you know, the United Nations got together and was like, oh, we had slavery, let's make a human right, and hopefully everybody follows it. We're building it from the ground up, decentralized. And the reason why we're doing that is we believe that we can use this technology to build agreement between individuals, governments, and corporations that my data is my property. And I understand that that's grammatically incorrect, but every time I say my data are my property, most people don't understand that. Okay? Now, we go about it, commercializing in different industries. We're obviously deploying in healthcare, that's why I'm here. And what we do is we enable the healthcare industry to go from bootleg data to fair trade data. I wasn't trying to be controversial. Bootleg data. Most of the data in healthcare today was stolen in something called business associate agreements. And the power to interpret HIPAA is actually centralized within the legal corridors of those companies who choose that that's the interpretation of HIPAA that they want to put on us. And we're using blockchain to go, hey man, what's up? How you doing? Here's me and my 100,000 friends. We want to tell you how we think HIPAA should be interpreted. So, I think you guys know what I'm going to say on this slide. If you're thinking about the protocol, don't think about the Swiss Army knife portion of the protocol. You're going to get lost in it. Think about the Play-Doh version of it. What can you make of it once you understand what is the one thing that it does? And don't get lost on the Economist article, because adding trust to every transaction is by far the most nebulous statement I've ever heard in my life. I'm 42 years old, so I've heard a lot of statements. Now, where are we in the blockchain protocol? I'd say 1994. I'd say we're about 1994. If you're working on a cryptocurrency right now, you're doing the equivalent of building another chat application in 1994. If you're investing in a cryptocurrency right now, I'm not going to finish that sentence. Now, the thing about blockchain is that it's going to move faster than the other paradigm. So it's not going to take us 20, 30 years to get there. It's going to move faster, and the reason it's going to move faster is because the immutability and the ability for these database instances to stay in consensus with each other is actually built into the protocol. So we don't have to spend all those Informatica license and integration costs that we have to spend in order to build systems. That's why it's going to move faster. The opportunity for healthcare lies in what, how, and who. Like, we can't agree on what the efficacy of a drug is, right? Anybody here can moonwalk? Okay. Most of us tend to walk into the future backwards, which is we take the thing that we have and we put it on a blockchain. That's not where the big use cases are. The big use cases are actually somewhere on the Play-Doh side. If you have a company right now, or you're investing in a company right now, or you're an incumbent and someone is pitching you right now that says, I took the thing you have and I put it on a blockchain, be nice, don't be an idiot, say thank you, and walk away. But if someone comes to you and they said, we've created something that could not have existed before this ability to have agreement at scale between unusual participants in a network, don't be an idiot, be nice, invite them to stay. We're using the IBM blockchain, which is running Hyperledger, and for those people who believe that the incumbent in the healthcare industry is not ready to be disrupted or not ready to receive stuff, I would challenge you. I'm just coming back from CNS Summit. I got almost 40 healthcare executives to come on a stage with me and declare the 31st human right in front of 600 of their peers, which means they're ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is blockchain. Thank you very much.
Great stuff, Richie. Awesome.